Hello, I am Jorge Capera and I am from LJMU. Can I just give you a really warm welcome tonight? You are just tuning to, our Missions Week. This is called Human, and basically it's a series of events that we will be having over the next 3 weeks where we will be exploring the topics of connection, security and justice. They have been put in place by students of LJMU and LIPA. So yeah, very welcome tonight. Just to give you a couple of housekeeping notices, you can comment and put any questions you have on the little box that you can see next to me. And also, we are going to be having a Q&A after this. So just so you can know what is going to happen now. Basically, we are going to have a talk from Sam. He's a really boss speaker, sorry. And yeah, he's going to be dealing with the issue of connection. Basically, we're going to be addressing the question of what does it mean to have meaningful connections in an isolated world. And after that, we're going to have the Q&A. But just before that, we went around in Liverpool asking just people about what they think about the topic of connection, especially under the current circumstances. And after that, we're going to have a music video, which I'm really excited about. It's just really nice. So yeah, enjoy it.
Well, I live alone, so yeah, I do feel quite isolated, but obviously I have my cat, so that's really helps, and I go to a lot of Zoom meetings, so that helps. But I think maybe for older people without like technology, it might be more difficult. I'm a therapist as well, and we're getting quite a lot of referrals at the moment for people who are basically like getting COVID related anxiety or depression, which is very linked to like they can't do what they usually do or see people. So yeah.
I still work normally, so not really. I work in science, so I can't really stop, so life hasn't really changed much for me.
I just try and make plans to like do stuff with my friends, like online. Yeah.
Everything's kind of pretty much normal for me, except the shops and stuff are closed.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Okay, let's go again.
Second that I heard you were all alone, I could feel the trouble coursing through your veins. Now I know it's gotta hold. Just a phone call left alone have had me sparking up. These cigarettes will stop me wondering where you are. Let go, but hold. If you look into the distance, there's a house upon the hill, guided like a lighthouse to the place where you can safely feel like grace, cause we've all made mistakes. If you've lost your way, I will leave a light on. 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 Tell me what's been happening, what's been on your mind. Lately you've been searching for a darker place to hide. It's alright. If you carry on abusing, you'll be robbed from us. And and I refuse to lose another friend to drugs. Just come home, don't let go. If you look into the distance, there's a house upon the hill, guiding like a lighthouse to the place where you'll feel safe to feel our grace, cause we've all made mistakes. If you've lost your way, I'll leave the light on. 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 So if you look into the distance, there's a house upon the hill, shining like a light into the place where you'll pretend to feel like rest. And if you lost your way, if you lost your way, and I know you're down and under, but I need you to be brave. Hiding from the truth, you're gonna make me so bad. See if anything will be like rain. If you lost your way, I will leave the light on. I will leave the light on. I will leave the light on.
Okay, that was a really, really nice videos. I really, really enjoy the cuts. I'm really, really mad about cuts, so I just love them. And also, it was really, really nice, the song. No, just kidding. Just being seriously, I really think that perhaps I personally, I identified with what the interviewee said, particularly when they were talking about just feeling perhaps more isolated nowadays than before. And with the song, I identified perhaps turning to something that is not quite right whenever I'm feeling sad or lonely. So yeah, but there are some really, really good news coming up. Just before that, let me talk you about some really nice books that we are going to give you if you have signed up for the event. So they are these books. This one, for example, is Why Believe the Bible. The one I'm holding now. It's basically about what evidence is there to believe the Bible and the claims it is saying. Also, we have Uncover. Uncover is basically a book where you can explore one of the Gospels. This one in particular is the Gospel of John, and you can assess by yourself whether you believe or not the claims that the Gospels are making. And it's a study material, very, very useful. But, well, you will find all about them whenever you receive them. Now, moving on, we are going to talk. We are going to have the talk. It is going to be about connection, and it is going to be delivered by Sam. Sam is a pastor from Manchester. He is actually from Stockport. And the most interesting fact about him is that he has some really wicked tips about how to make you money last when you are a student. So definitely ask him all about it. No, just kidding. We are going to have the talk now, so please enjoy.
Hi Sam, how are you doing?
Hi, good to see you, Stephen. Yeah, doing all right.
Good.
Lockdown life, but we're ticking along okay, thanks.
Yeah, great. So can you just tell me a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, where you're from?
Yeah, so I'm Sam. I have a wife. She's called Anna.
Hi Sam, how are you doing?
Hi, good to see you, Stephen. Yeah, doing all right.
Good.
Lockdown
Good.
life, but we're ticking along okay, thanks.
Yeah, great. So can you just tell me a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, where you're from?
Yeah, so I'm Sam. I have a wife. She's called Anna. Married for about 6 years, and we've got a couple of girls, 3 and 1. So it hasn't been quiet over the last 12 months or so. But I live in Stockport, South Manchester. I work for a church, and I love helping people think through sort of big questions of life and things of truth and hope. And I do that as part of the church, and love doing that with students as well.
Great. Yeah. Being from Manchester, I assume you support Man United?
Yeah, well, kind of. I grew up watching the likes of David Beckham on the TV, so I was I was attracted to that. But I was born and bred in Devon, down the West Country.
Okay.
So Exeter City would have been my local team. So there we go.
Yeah. Nice. So obviously, COVID has changed so much in the world at the minute, and I'm sure it's impacted your life, especially being involved in the church and things. So what would you say is the biggest thing that you've learned during the whole COVID experience?
Yeah, I think something that's driven home particularly is that I like to think I'm in charge of the world, but the reality is I'm just not. I suppose if I thought back to a year ago, what I imagined the last 12 months to be is completely unlike what it's been, isn't it? And when rules come in that restrict what we're able to do, both in life, with family, as a church, holiday, where we live, it's difficult, isn't it? I like to feel that I'm the little lord of my little world, I suppose. But yeah, I think that's been something I've stubbornly yet slowly been learning. That I'm not in charge. But as a Christian, great hope that God is, and maybe I've been slowly learning that. Yeah,
excellent, great. On to a more positive subject then. What would you say is your most memorable or just your best lockdown experience?
Yeah, so we're quite fortunate actually. Our house backs onto a golf course, and the golf course has been shut for a large chunk of the last 12 months. So my 3-year-old has enjoyed, and I went to watch golf course just in case there's a thing, making the second hole bunker into a personal sandpit. So that's been fun. And we've enjoyed getting out and exploring and just sort of even just walking out there. So in some ways that's been a blessing, more time as a family, although we'd love to have shared that with others more often.
Yeah. Great. And then final question. So would you rather have to fight 10 duck-sized horses or 1 horse-sized duck? So you're in this situation, you have to fight.
Well, I spend quite a lot of time feeding the ducks at the moment with a 3-year-old. We've got a pond down the road. Okay. So that size I think I could take. So yeah, 10 duck-sized horses. I think I could stand on them as much as I wouldn't like to stand on little horses. But I think a horse-sized duck, that would freak me out and I would freeze and I'd be gone. Yeah. Awesome. Man, that's deep. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Sam. And we're going to go into the talk now. So thank you very much, Sam.
Well, hi and welcome to this John Moore's CU event. My name is Sam. I'm going to be speaking here and then the next couple of weeks as well. And before I start, however you're tuning in and watching with us, can I encourage you that this is not just meant to be something you listen to and then go away, but part of a conversation. We're holding this Q&A on Zoom afterwards. Hopefully you've heard about the details about how to get on, and we'd love you to join us for that, to make this a little bit more of a conversation. Well, the topic for tonight is how can we find connection in an isolated world? That, frankly, is my response. We feel it, don't we? Life over the last months, year now, has been hard. We're tired. And so much of that difficulty has been summed up with this idea of isolation, lack of connection with other people. Part of the cruelty of COVID has been the enforcement of social distancing. Not being able to hug or handshake or say hi to people. Having to always cover our face with masks. We feel isolated. It was tragic. I was reading this last week in the news of higher levels of anxiety linked to isolation. Children as young as 10 turning up in A&E, tragically having been self-harming, finding it all too difficult. And the doctor said so much of that is linked with the idea of being isolated, not connected to others. So imagine for many here in this evening that this is true for you too. This is something you have felt deeply, and it has been hard. It's real. Perhaps the reality for many of you has been the empty hall of residence that you've been living in nearly by yourself with no one else around in your flats. Perhaps the fear in those earlier days of getting COVID. Perhaps the reality of having to be back at home with mum and dad or whoever's at home because you're not able to make it back to Liverpool. Studying online is rubbish compared to the reality of being with other people, isn't it? Connection is something we long for. We need, and I suggest this evening, something we're made and designed for. So it's affected us. Because if this whole year had left us unaffected, or it's all okay, well, surely that would tell us that we don't actually need connection. We don't need relationship and closeness with others. But the fact of the matter is it's been so hard. It shows us that it's something we deeply need. But I want to take a little step back this evening and say, well, if this is our shared human experience, if this is reality for all of us, then why? What about us needs and longs for that connection with others? And to help us think about that, I want us to try and think back, if you can, to a time before COVID, those glory days a year or so ago. What was it like back then? Did you ever feel isolated in those days? Or perhaps not as bad as now, but surely the answer is still yes. Wasn't longing for connection still something that we couldn't quite wholly grasp? Wasn't it a little bit like trying to find the end of the rainbow? You look for one place, and the time you've got there, you find it's moved on to somewhere else. In an age that we're more connected in some ways through the internet, often it seems, and stats will show, that they were actually less connected, feel less with others than perhaps ever before. Tom Walker sung about it in that great song, didn't he? A pre-COVID song, yet still feeling isolated. And the song is the reality of drugs, or perhaps mistakes, relationships that are broken down. That can often lead us feeling a lack of connection and isolated. Relationships often fail to deliver in the ways perhaps we hoped they would. So why do we have this drive for connection then? Where does it come from? Is it purely an animal thing? Is it a drive to survive? Those connected can mate and reproduce, like something you see in the animal kingdom or in an Attenborough documentary? Or is it just a feeling, just a matter of science, endorphins? Being with others make us feel good, so naturally we seek that out and want it. Or perhaps the science of that might be true. But as we see in those videos of the nurse that's been away from her family for months, that comes back and is reunited, and the connection you get there, well, surely doesn't that tell us that it's more than just mere science going on at those points? There's something more significant than just human biochemistry. And I want to suggest this evening, and coming from the Christian Union, that we so long for connection, yet struggle to find it because we've been looking in the wrong place. Actually, we are made for connection with the God who's made us. And that is where the difference is found in terms of our connections with others. You might have all sorts of connections about this, questions or objections about this idea of God or our design. And feel free to fire them up in the Q&A afterwards. But just bear with me for a little bit. And I hope you'll listen along and hear that the Bible actually does have something wonderful to say into this question. I want to suggest that the long we have for connection is because we're not getting it satisfied and found in our relationship we've made for with our gods. And it's there that makes the difference for our connections with one another. So firstly, I want to think about who God is. Well, we all take our reference for what it means to be a human, what it means to have meaning and significance from somewhere. It's our way of viewing the world and finding meaning and truth. And the Bible starts with God. God the Father, God the Son, God the Spirit. This unity, Trinity. 3 persons and one God. He's not a lonely God out there all by himself, just longing and looking for someone to be in connection with, someone to worship him. No. It starts with this loving union, Father, Son, and Spirit. And the world is made as an outpouring of this, a sharing of that wonderful goodness and love that's been forever experienced. It's why our world is so wonderful and is so good in many ways. And humans are designed and made in his image and likeness, which means we're made for relationship. We're made for a union with others. We're made for connection. It's striking that in the Bible creation narrative, the one thing that is described as not good is when man is on his own. We're made for connection. Second, we have our struggle because the world is broken. You see, sadly, the story of the Bible was that of close connection with God, which led to close connection with others. Yet man turned away from God and just curled in on themselves, thinking just about ourselves. And that's broken our relationship. Our trust is broken. And the Bible calls that sin. And that then has an effect with others. Our connection with others, again, we instead of moving towards them, we turn away. Isn't that the root of so much arguments? So much of our strife, so much of our wars? Tragedy. That human connection is broken. We long for it. We're made for it. Yet it's broken. But the Bible story doesn't stop there. No, God doesn't leave us in this way, but he came. God the Son taking on human likeness, human flesh, humanity in Jesus Christ. I want to share a brief story of Jesus with someone else from the Gospel of Mark. Is one of the accounts of Jesus' life. The end of chapter 1, feel free to look it up or Google it, is where Jesus heals a man with leprosy. It's chapter 1, verse 40 onwards. It's a story of isolation which leads to connection. You see, leprosy in Bible days was even worse than getting a positive COVID test. Life for a leper, as one first century Jewish historian described it, was described as a dead man walking. Feeling in your flesh, your hands, your feet, your extremities would rot and your feeling would get taken away. You'd have to live outside of the family, outside the community, perhaps on the edge of the village or the town. And whenever they saw someone, they were expected to cry out, "Unclean, unclean," a warning that people shouldn't come too close. What an awful existence. What an inhumane existence. Isolated. No connection. And in the Jewish world, this would have meant you're cut off from the temple. You were cut off from the place where worship of gods. And this man in the narrative with leprosy comes to Jesus and begged him on his knees, "If you are willing, you can make me clean," he says. He comes to Jesus, "You can solve my isolation. You can make me clean." And verse 41 we read, Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing," he said, "be clean." And immediately the leprosy left him and he was cleaned. This is not something you did if you were trying to be a respectable Jewish man, a teacher with a following. If you touch the thought is you might get it, you're then unclean. Yet Jesus reaches out his hand and touches the man. Well, why am I recounting this narrative? Well, it's a beautiful story and an example of the difference that Jesus makes Jesus the one who can solve our isolation, our disconnect with God, and then with one another. Jesus is the only one who can connect us with God, because like the leper, he reaches out his hand to us. He says, "Come to me, and I can make your relationship with God right. I came so that I might die on a cross, and that I might take all your brokenness and your guilt on myself, that I might die the death that you should die, that I might make take all that distrust with God on me, that I might cleanse you so that you might be clean and forgiven and have connection with God." We can be a forgiven people. That's why Jesus came, to connect people back with God who felt that they couldn't come to him, by taking all that dirt and sin on himself. And that is the path, that is where it leads to connection with others. And that's my story. Because if I'm connected to God, and if he loves me and forgives me and welcomes me into relationship, then it changes everything. Because so often in life we look for connection with others that is just an unfair expectation on them. I've been married for about 6 years to my wife Anna, and it would be easy to believe the narrative that now I've found the one, now I'm in love, and we've got a house and kids, etc., then life is sorted because they are providing all the connection that I should ever need. And actually, if I don't find it there, if they're not giving me what I want, then maybe I should just move on and look for it somewhere else. Yet it's twisted, because it heaps so much expectation on that one person, on the mere people around us, that they should provide for me that connection, that meaning, that purpose, that good feeling, just on people. It doesn't work, does it? Yet the difference Jesus makes is that he's no just mere human, but he's God. And if he says that I'm welcomed and forgiven and loved, not just because of my loveliness, but because of Jesus died for me to make me right with God, then today, if my wife or my friend or my mum or whoever makes me feel connected, welcomes me in, then it doesn't matter. Actually, I'm not going to be completely lost if they don't give that, because I know the love of God, that relationship I was made for, that connection I was made to know and experience, and that makes the difference. Connection with God leads to a deeper connection with others. It's no longer looking for them to fulfill what I need in whatever way, but instead able to extend our hands in love to others. Life is hard, especially at the moment, and we feel that need for connection. But friends, can I encourage you to look to Jesus for it? Only he can give it in the way you're looking for. And only he can make us right with God, enter into a wonderful relationship with him, our sins forgiven, and our fear of death taken away, so that we might then be able to offer that to others. He's done all you need. His hand of connection is reached out. How will you respond to him? Well, thanks for listening. Like I said, please do join us for some Q&A after. I'd love to hear what you think. You might agree, you might completely disagree. I'd love to have some interchange and think about this a little bit more with you. It matters, right? So it's worth us checking it out. And if this is new to you and you've never explored it before, why not read that story I just told from Matthew's Gospel, the book of Mark's Gospel, the book of Mark, and you can check it out. Why not read on and see if this Jesus really is who I claim him to be? Well, hopefully see you for some Q&A in a minute. Thanks.
Hello. That was a really, really encouraging talk, wasn't it? I really love how Sam explained the work of God stretching out his hand to invite us into his community of eternal love. It's just really lovely. Now, perhaps you might be wondering, what is this book of Mark he's talking about? Well, fortunately we have Uncover Mark, which explores the Gospel of Mark. Just like Uncover John, it gives you some tools and study guides to explore this Gospel for yourself and make your own determinations about it. But also perhaps you're not so sure to take a Gospel right now, and that's all right. That's why there is this little book as well called 3-2-1. It is basically an exploration of Christianity, just like if somebody was welcoming you into their house. It is really easy to read, and just like with all the other books, we would love to send you a copy of them if you live in the city, in the Liverpool City region. But if you live outside, we would love to send you an ebook. Now, this is the end of the live stream, sadly, but it is not the end of the night by any means. We're going to have a Q&A with Sam now, which you can sign up for just clicking the link below me, or if you are already in the Zoom chat, well, hopefully you will be able to ask him any question you have whatsoever. Thank you so much for coming. In the next couple of weeks, we are going to be exploring all the topics which are really interesting and important for our life now. So yeah, can I just really thank you for coming, and hopefully we will see you next week. Bye bye.